You wake up, check your phone, and see that gas prices went up overnight. Again. Meanwhile, your favorite coffee shop raised their prices, your rent is due, and somehow a single avocado costs $3. What the actual heck is going on with money, and why does everything feel like it's designed to make you broke? Economics is basically the study of why you can't have everything you want, which is both depressing and oddly liberating. At its core, it's about scarcity. There's not enough stuff to go around, so we have to figure out how to allocate resources without everyone killing each other. Think of it as organized fighting over limited pie slices, except the pie is everything in existence and the fighting happens with spreadsheets. The whole thing started because humans noticed they couldn't just wish things into existence. You want a sandwich? Someone has to grow the wheat, mill the flour, bake the bread, raise the animals, process the meat, and transport everything to your local store. That takes time, labor, and resources, all of which are limited. So economics was born to answer the fundamental questions. What should we produce? How should we produce it? And who gets what? Here's where it gets interesting. Economics assumes people are rational actors who make decisions to maximize their benefit. This is obviously complete nonsense. Humans buy $7 lattes while complaining about being broke and impulse purchase exercise equipment they never use. But it's a useful starting point for understanding patterns in human behavior. The foundation of everything in economics comes down to supply and demand, which sounds simple, but is actually a beautiful dance of human psychology and resource scarcity. Demand is how much people want something at different prices. Generally, when prices go up, people want less of it, and when prices go down, people want more. This creates the demand curve, which slopes downward like your motivation on Monday morning. Supply is how much producers are willing to make at different prices. Usually, when prices go up, producers want to make more of it because they can make more profit. This creates the supply curve, which slopes upward like your stress levels during finals week. Where these two curves intersect is the market equilibrium, aka the magic point where the amount people want to buy equals the amount producers want to sell. It's like finding the perfect temperature in the shower, theoretically possible but surprisingly difficult to maintain. But wait, what determines demand in the first place? Several factors: income, preferences, prices of related goods, expectations about the future, and the number of buyers in the market. If everyone suddenly decides avocados are the key to eternal youth, demand goes up. If a study comes out saying avocados cause spontaneous combustion, demand goes down. It's basically collective human psychology translated into price movements. Supply depends on production costs, technology, expectations, number of sellers, and government policies. If a new machine makes it cheaper to produce avocados, supply increases. If a drought kills half the avocado trees, supply decreases. If the government decides to tax avocados because they're too green, supply might decrease because it's now more expensive to produce them. Welcome to Economics Pro Tips Season 1, Tip of the Day. If someone tells you they can predict exactly what the economy will do next, they're either lying or about to sell you something. The economy is basically millions of people making individual decisions that somehow add up to patterns, which is like trying to predict a flock of birds by studying one feather. Yeah, that's it. Have a great day. Now let's talk about elasticity, which is how sensitive people are to price changes. Some things are elastic. When the price goes up, demand drops significantly. Luxury items, entertainment, that expensive coffee you don't really need. Other things are inelastic. People need them regardless of price. Gasoline, medicine, basic food items. You'll still buy insulin even if the price doubles because, well, you kind of need it to live. This is why gas stations can raise prices and people just grumble but still fill up their tanks. It's also why concert tickets can cost $200 and people will still buy them. Entertainment is elastic. But once you're emotionally committed to seeing Taylor Swift, rationality goes out the window. But individual markets are just the beginning. When you zoom out, you get macroeconomics, which looks at the entire economy as one giant, chaotic system. Instead of one market for avocados, you're looking at all markets for everything, plus all the ways they interact with each other. The big indicators economists watch are gross domestic product, GDP, which measures the total value of everything produced in a country. It's like a massive receipt for an entire nation's economic activity. Then there's unemployment rate, which measures how many people want jobs but can't find them. And inflation, which measures how fast prices are rising across the economy. Here's the thing about GDP. It's a useful measure, but it's also kind of weird. It counts everything that involves money changing hands, even if it's not necessarily good. A hurricane that destroys a city actually boosts GDP because of all the rebuilding activity. Crime increases GDP because people buy security systems. It's like measuring your health by how much money you spend on medical bills. Technically data, but missing the bigger picture. Inflation is where things get really interesting and slightly terrifying. It's the general increase in prices over time, which means your money buys less stuff than it used to. A little bit of inflation is actually good. It encourages spending and investment because holding cash becomes slightly less attractive. But too much inflation turns into a nightmare where prices rise faster than wages, effectively making everyone poorer. The causes of inflation are hotly debated. Sometimes it's demand pull inflation, too much money chasing too few goods. Sometimes it's cost push inflation. Production costs go up, so prices have to follow. Sometimes it's built into expectations. If everyone expects prices to rise, they do, because people act on those expectations. Central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the US, try to control inflation through monetary policy. They can raise or lower interest rates, which affects how much it costs to borrow money. Lower rates encourage borrowing and spending, which stimulates the economy but can cause inflation. Higher rates discourage borrowing and spending, which can slow inflation but might cause unemployment. It's like being the thermostat for an entire economy, except the thermostat affects millions of jobs and livelihoods. Fiscal policy is the government's other tool, spending and taxation. When the economy is slow, the government can spend more money or cut taxes to stimulate activity. When the economy is overheating, they can spend less or raise taxes to cool things down. In theory, it's simple. In practice, it involves politics, which makes everything approximately 1,000 times more complicated. Speaking of government, let's talk about market failures, situations where the free market doesn't produce optimal outcomes. Monopolies happen when one company controls an entire market and can charge whatever they want. Public goods like roads and national defense can't be efficiently provided by private markets because you can't exclude people who don't pay. Externalities occur when actions affect people who aren't part of the transaction, like pollution from a factory affecting nearby residents. This is where government regulation comes in. Antitrust laws prevent monopolies, taxes and subsidies address externalities, and public funding provides public goods. But every intervention has unintended consequences, and every economist has a different opinion about what the government should or shouldn't do. International trade adds another layer of complexity. Countries can specialize in producing what they're best at and trade for everything else. This is comparative advantage. Even if one country is better at producing everything, there are still gains from trade if they focus on what they're relatively best at. It's like a surgeon who's also great at cleaning but still hires a cleaning service so they can focus on surgery. But trade also creates winners and losers within countries. Consumers benefit from cheaper imports, but workers in competing industries might lose their jobs. This creates political tension between the overall benefits of trade and the concentrated costs borne by specific groups of people. Exchange rates determine how much one currency is worth in terms of another. They fluctuate based on interest rates, inflation, political stability, and market speculation. When your currency is strong, imports are cheap, but exports are expensive. When it's weak, exports are competitive, but imports cost more. It's a constant balancing act that affects everything from vacation costs to manufacturing competitiveness. Now let's talk about economic systems. Capitalism relies on private ownership, market competition, and profit incentives to allocate resources. It's really good at innovation and efficiency, but can produce inequality and instability. Socialism emphasizes public ownership and central planning to ensure more equal distribution, but can struggle with innovation and efficiency. Most real economies are mixed systems combining elements of both. Economic growth happens when an economy produces more output over time. This can come from more workers, better technology, more capital equipment, or improved efficiency. Growth is generally good because it means higher living standards, but it also uses resources and can create environmental problems. Plus, the benefits of growth aren't always distributed equally, which brings us back to politics. Business cycles are the recurring patterns of expansion and recession that seem to be built into market economies. During expansions, employment is high, businesses are growing, and optimism is widespread. During recessions, unemployment rises, businesses struggle, and pessimism spreads. These cycles are partly driven by psychology. When people feel confident, they spend and invest more, which creates more confidence. When they feel worried, they spend and invest less, which creates more worry. Economists have been trying to understand and predict these cycles for centuries with limited success. Some blame external shocks like oil price spikes or financial crises. Others point to internal dynamics like investment bubbles or debt accumulation. The reality is probably that business cycles have multiple causes and feedback loops that make them nearly impossible to predict precisely. Financial markets add another dimension to all this. Stock markets, bond markets, and banking systems facilitate investment and risk sharing, but can also amplify economic fluctuations. When financial markets are working well, they channel savings into productive investments. When they malfunction, they can crash the entire economy, as we learned in 2008. Behavioral economics has emerged to challenge the assumption that people are rational economic actors. Turns out, humans use mental shortcuts, are influenced by emotions, and make systematic errors in judgment. We overweight immediate costs and benefits, are loss-averse, and are influenced by how choices are presented. This helps explain why people don't save enough for retirement, why bubbles form in markets, and why economic predictions often fail. The digital economy has created new challenges for traditional economic thinking. How do you measure the value of free services like Google or Facebook? What happens to labor markets when artificial intelligence automates jobs? How do you regulate cryptocurrencies and digital platforms that operate across national boundaries? These questions don't have clear answers yet, but they're reshaping how we think about economics. Climate change adds another layer of complexity. Environmental degradation is a massive negative externality that markets don't naturally address. Carbon pricing, green technology investments, and sustainable development require coordinating economic policy with environmental goals. It's like trying to steer the economy while also preventing it from destroying the planet. Technically possible, but requiring unprecedented cooperation and long-term thinking. Inequality has become a major focus of economic research and policy debate. While capitalism has lifted billions out of poverty, it has also concentrated wealth among a small elite. This raises questions about fairness, political stability, and economic efficiency. Some inequality might be necessary for incentives, but too much can undermine social cohesion and economic growth. The pandemic showed how interconnected and fragile modern economies really are. Supply chains that seemed robust broke down overnight. Service industries that employed millions shut down completely. Governments intervened with unprecedented fiscal and monetary support. We learned that economic theory is useful, but real economies are complex, adaptive systems that can behave in unexpected ways during extreme events. Looking forward, economics faces challenges from demographic changes, technological disruption, environmental constraints, and shifting global power dynamics. The tools and concepts we've developed over centuries are still useful, but they'll need to evolve to address new realities.